Welcome to the Cades Cove Museum. The Cades Cove Museum is run by volunteers. We're a non-profit organization run by the Cades Cove Preservation Association. We've been in this building since 2005. Martha Thompson was born here in 1823. She married Calvin Post in 1846. Shortly after the marriage, of course, they moved into Cades Cove, where he was a large landowner. Now, the first white permanent settler in Cades Cove was John and Lorraine Fraser Oliver. The last to live in the cove was Kermit Lois Cawhorn. When he passed away in April of 1999, the family was made to leave, and we formed as an organization 2001. That was our first meeting, so that we could preserve the human history, preserve their lives, everything about the former Cades Cove before it became a park. Now, everything in here was used by someone in the cove. Church, we've got church items. We have even some of the descendants that have now passed away. They bring their items in, we put it out. We have the largest collection of Cades Cove memorabilia, which depicts their lives, what it was like to live in Cades Cove, and we would love for you to stop by. It's free admission. We'd love for you to stop by and to get, at least to get the history, the human history of Cades Cove.
Hi, my name is Richard Anderson. I am a charter member of the Cades Cove Preservation Association, and many of you may not know how we got started, what we're all about. We all met the first of January of 2001 at the old Kroger's building back when they had a community room. And this had been in the making for a while. People were wanting to see an area where we could all come together, where we would have artifacts and things of this nature. So we all met and organized the Cades Cove Preservation Association. I myself, I was elected second vice president. We elected officers. We put in our bylaws and got established there. When we first organized, our first major project was in the cove. The 3 church cemetery pathways were nothing but just gullies. So we went in armed with rakes, shovels, wheelbarrows. The Park Service brought in the dirt and the gravel, and we built all 3 pathways up. We put the chains up, not to keep people out of the cemeteries, but to keep the people on an established pathway through the cemeteries. We have people that go to the churches about once a week, year-round, when the weather's permitting. But we go up and clean all 3 churches, clean the grounds up and everything, but it's all volunteer work. We have also done other pathways in the at some of the cabins and have rebuilt those. We do whatever the park asks us to do, or if we have suggestions, we go to the park and ask them if this would be all right with them. So we've been doing this now for, like I say, since 2001. The Cades Cove Preservation Association was organized by former residents of Cades Cove, descendants of Cades Cove like myself, others that just want to be a part of preserving the heritage, the history, the culture of the cove. We have a membership of over 500 people now. You do not have to be a descendant of the cove to be a member. You just have to love the cove and be willing to do what you can to help us with our endeavors. After we've organized, we started searching for a place that we could call home. We've been at the old Chilhowee School community center now. We've been there. We were at the Allen Wick School, which is Allen Wick Community Center. But in about 2005, we were approached about would we be interested in getting the Thompson Brown House as our museum. Well, this was kind of like don't stand in the way, we're moving in. So this was in 2005. We've been in here since then. We now have control of the building. The property is owned by Blount County, but we now have control of the building so now we can call it our home. And that was a big event for us, just to be able to say we do now have a home that we can call ours.
Well, I'm Stephen Weber. I'm the current president of the Cades Cove Preservation Association. I'm the great-great-great-grandson of John and Lorraine Oliver, the first permanent white settlers in Cades Cove. And my mother, Johnny Geneva, was born and raised in Cades Cove. And she left Cades Cove probably to go to high school. Their father sent all the children out of the Cove to high school. There's only grade schools in Cades Cove, so all the children went out of the Cove to high school. And my mother, he sent her to Montreat Normal School, Montreat, North Carolina. I think it's a college now, but it was called a normal school then, and normal schools were used to train teachers. And during her senior year, she was elected May Queen over there, and this is her former May Queen picture right here. This picture of her, she's probably about 14 or 15 here, showing this flax wheel. You can see in that picture there, and the winder or the flax there, and some of the coverlets that her mother had made. She'd seen that. And her brother, older brother, the oldest son, Wayne Oliver, who became a judge, when he was a young boy, his father sent him to Maryville Polytechnic School for his high school training. And in 1922, he and another boy from Cades Cove, Lester Shields, actually boarded in this house, in this room right upstairs. And at that time, the Brown family had it, and it was a dairy. So both Lester and Wayne had to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, plus one of the Brown boys, and milk about 20 cows. And they had breakfast, and they went to school. And then when they came back after school about 3:30, they had to milk them again. And by that time, Mr. Brown had prepared last evening's milk and that morning's milk. And after supper, they had to hitch up the team and actually deliver milk around Maryville. So that's one of the connections with the house with Cades Cove, even though the house has been here for over 225 years. But also, my grandfather, John W. Oliver, some pictures of him in the other room. Well, actually, this is a picture of him here in his older years when he lived in Townsend. Moved to Townsend, he was probably walking down to his shop or down to the chicken house or whatever when that picture was taken. That cane he's using is in the cabinet in the other room. He was was called a progressive thinker, not in the current political sense of progressive, but progressive meaning wanting to modernize the Cove and have the best for it anytime he could. He introduced the first Black Angus cattle in the Cove, the three-banded Italian honeybee. He brought those into the Cove, which is a very gentle bee that produced honey. He taught school. In 1904, I believe it's 1904, he took the civil service exam to be the letter carrier. I mean, until that time, everybody had to go to the post office in the Cove to get their mail. But started a carrier route around the Cove. It was 22 miles. I think he scored about 97 or 98 on the exam, and started carrying the mail around the Cove. And he did that for about 30 years until he retired. Even after he moved out of the Cove, he went back every day and delivered the mail. and he'd do it on horseback and buggy, and he finally had a Model T where he'd deliver it, but always some portions of the cove had to be accessed on horseback. So that was his way of trying to better himself and the people of Cades Cove. He was an elder of the Primitive Baptist Church. They call their preachers elders, and just like his father was an elder of the Primitive Baptist Church. And I don't think they met every Sunday, but when they did, you know, he preached. And the churches were and the schools were the areas in the community where people assembled for community activities. And of course the grist mill, some days on the grist mills, men would be down there, you know, gathered around, mostly telling lies about their hunting dogs than anything else, while waiting on their meal to be ground. But he was always looking to better the cove, and made sure all his kids were educated. And he was educated himself. He went to Louisville, Kentucky, and got a degree at Massey Business School in Louisville, Kentucky, and attended Maryville College some. And he taught school in what's called the lower school in the cove, and then got another year in the upper school. But of course he had his farm. He farmed and was always interested in breeding better stock. And so it was he was, at this time, he was the leader in the cove, and a lot of people not necessarily resented that, but they made fun of him. You know, they said that's just another one of John Oliver's crazy ideas. But when it came to fruition, you know, they enjoyed the fruits of his efforts too. So they had six children, 4 boys and 2 girls that survived to adulthood, and they had 4 others, 4 others that died. Their firstborn, Frona May, she lived about 12 days. Irene died of diphtheria at about 2 years of age. They had some twins, daughters that were stillborn, basically stillborn, and they weren't named. But the other 4 boys and 2 girls all survived to adulthood. All of them were very successful in life. And so my grandfather was proud of that his children left the cove and pursued careers and became very successful. We're proud of our museum here in this heritage. There's probably over 1,000 artifacts in here, close to 1,000, and every one of them came from a family in Cades Cove and are the churches. So we invite people to come by the museum. It's free. We're normally open Wednesday through Saturday, 10 to 3. As you can see right now, it's a little chilly in here, so on cold days we may not be open, but we are having our fundraiser. We have a lot of items that people have donated to sell to try to get in the first priority is to get a new roof on this building. It's leaking badly, and we want to return to the metal roof that was originally on here. So hopefully we'll be able to do that within the next year.
My name is Dorothy Gregory Sutton. I was born in Cades Cove to Howard and Ora Lane Gregory. We left Cades Cove in 1939, but we really didn't leave Cades Cove. My daddy went back every weekend. We spent every weekend in Cades Cove. Where we would camp would be down like the picnic area, except it wasn't a picnic area. All it was just woods. And one morning my mother was fixing breakfast, and my daddy had an old 32B model, And my mother would put the kids in the B model for us to sleep in, and they would sleep under the B model. Well, she was fixing breakfast, and there was a bear come down through there. And she screamed at us and said, "Go get in the car, kids." And we all jumped and went in the car. When the bear got down there, he made himself a breakfast out of ours. He ate everything. But as I said, we moved out in 1939. And then we moved to Greenback, Tennessee. My daddy bought a farm. And I went to school at Lanier, and I received a scholarship from Blunt Memorial Hospital Association. And I went to East Tennessee Baptist Hospital and became a nurse. When I graduated, I went to work for the Blount County Health Department, and we were the pilot light program for the Medicare. I would do home visits, and I had a lot of experience in home visits and took care of a lot of patients. And my daddy was very vivid about us going back to Cades Cove and spending time in Cades Cove, because he never did appreciate having to leave. He always regretted it that he couldn't spend his time, finish out his childhood up there. I became very involved with the Cades Cove Preservation. My sister was one of them that really actually helped start it, because there was very few things ever mentioned about Cades Cove or ever done. So I know Richard had talked about when we did the first meeting at Kroger's in order to establish the Cades Cove Museum. And we have a lot of artifacts that was given to us from residents in Cades Cove. And a lot of our residents who were born in Cades Cove have passed on, but we still have a lot of their leftovers from when they were in the cove. And we all love Cades Cove very much. And to the present day right now, I'm working on a book. It's called Cades Cove Teachers in Schools. And I've been interviewing a lot of the family, and I've been working on it a good while. I've interviewed a lot of the Cades Cove teachers that worked there, but they're all gone now, just about. Well, I'd say they're all gone. I've interviewed their families on that. And the other one that that I'm working on is our Cades Cove Veterans. And it's called Cades Cove Veterans and Descendants. And I hope to have it completed too, but the teacher's one is just about ready to be printed. But Cades Cove is a very vivid place to me and my family, because we spent a lot of time in our childhood there, camping out and hiking with my daddy. But the thing about it, back when we hiked, you didn't hike with pants. We always had to wear dresses to hike in. On some of the teachers' items, we have some here in the museum. I know that I have a bell that Golden Williams, when she taught at Spruce Flats in Cades Cove, she gave to me, and it's not here in the cove, but it will be soon. And the veterans, we have a lot about our veterans in the book that I'm doing. I know there's a lot of heroes in the veterans. I know Tommy Birchfield was one that rescued 4 men from a bunker by himself whenever I think it was a bomb had hit, and he did that by himself. But we have so many that I interviewed of the veterans that talked about their time in the military and whenever they were in battle. I know on one, when I talked to Golden Williams, she was a teacher in Cades Cove. She left her teaching position and went into the old General Hospital and became a nurse, and then she joined the Army in World War II. Not many women joined the Army, but they was a lot, but they were several from Cades Cove that joined the Army. The children there, they entertained themselves. They didn't have any type of, well, radios, well, they to listen to. They had the radios, but they didn't have any other appliances to. So they played a lot of games called Ankly Over and Tag You're It. And a lot of the boys would just have a wire and hold it onto a wheel and pretend as driving a car. Just a lot of things that they entertained themselves, the children of Cades Cove did. We have a lot of things in the museum that people have made and donated. Inez Macaulay Adams made this picture of, she tried to place all the Cades Cove homes in it that was around the road. And it has the teachers, the Cades Cove schools on there, that the location was it. A lot of people don't realize that we had so many schools in Cades Cove, and the children, well, whenever Cades Cove first became in existence, the kids, they didn't have any schools, and the children was sent to Tuckaleechee Cove, which is Townsend, to go to school, because they didn't have any, and then they built schools, but they was just out of old logs and shingles on the roof. And, well, like for instance, the old field school, it was just made out of logs. There was 3 of them, and in the center of the room was a fireplace, and there was a hole in the roof for the smoke to go out. See, it was very primitive, but they sent the children there on that. There was, like I said, 3 of them. And then later on, whenever Cades Cove developed further, that they got sawmills, they started building their own schools. The residents had to pay the teachers. They either bartered or give them money or produce whenever the teachers would be teaching at these old schools. But it was really hard, very hard for these families to send their kids to school, because they needed them to help work and do the fields so that they would have food and stuff for winter time and get ready for winter, because the snows was very deep in Cades Cove in the winter time. But later on, they developed other schools. They developed the board schools. You know, most people think that I know that all that's up there now is the cabins, but most people are not aware of Cades Cove having beautiful homes in Cades Cove. In fact, my great-grandfather, Preacher Andy Gregory, who was a pastor at the Primitive Baptist Church, he had a huge 2-story house that was beautiful. But most people, when the tourist goes in, they think we all lived in just cabins, but we have all these beautiful homes. And when they come to the museum, we hope they'll look at the homes that Inez has put on the board there for them to see that we had homes. And we had so many stores in Cades Cove too. It was, a lot of people are not aware of them, because when the park went in, they destroyed everything except for the churches and the cabins, because I think their theory was they wanted it to go back to like it was original, like in the 18 and 20s and whenever they came into the cove. But they destroyed all the schools and all the boarded houses, all of them that Inez has on this board on the back.
Hi everyone, I'm Jim Motter with the Cades Cove Preservation Association here at the Cades Cove Museum in Maryville, Tennessee. I'm going to talk a little bit about our DVD series, since we are so proud of our heritage and our descendants that came out of Cades Cove years ago when it became a national park. So we have actually a DVD series of interviews of descendants, their parents, their grandparents, their great-grandparents, and so forth, settled in the cove, turned it into the farmland and the Cades Cove that we know today that we all love in the national park. The DVD start at the beginning of the loop and they go all the way around until you end. And these stories are priceless from these descendants. There's many of these descendants that have passed on and they're no longer with us, so their stories are contained in these DVD series. There's 9 of them currently. We may have a volume 10, we're not sure, we're working on that. And there's 2 DVDs in each set. So we encourage you to learn the human history of Cades Cove. Come up and see us at the museum here in Maryville, Tennessee. We have over 1,000 artifacts in this museum that came out of the cove from the families. And pick these DVDs up. You'll be glad you did to learn the story of the cove. Thanks a lot.
If you would like to join us or be a part of us in any way, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. You do not have to be a Cades Cove descendant to be a member. $20 a year membership presently, and we do take volunteers to work up in the cove when we have work days. So if you would like to be a part of us, our mailing address is Cades Cove Preservation Association, Post Office Box 213, Alcoa, Tennessee 37701.
We invite you to come visit us, see what we have inside this building, because it is so important that we preserve the history of Cades Cove. We're located at 1004 East Lamar Alexander Parkway, Maryville, Tennessee, in the 2-story log house. We're right across from the hospital. www.cadescovepreservation.com. We also have a Facebook page. Just find CCPA for short, and you can visit us there and see all the information that we have.